All right, so this is part 4 of the $300 service on a $30 bike. I had meant to record putting the bike back together, less the obviously the chain and the cables, and I did do that. The problem is that the microphone I have, it died. It's a wireless mic, and it just ran out of battery, and I didn't realize it. So apologies there. All I really did there was I went through all the different components that we had stripped off before, such as the brakes, obviously the derailleur, the crank, everything. And I just put it back together. So really not much that was missed in terms of that video not being available. So apologies again, but it is what it is. I can't go back and fix it now. So what I want to do today, or tonight, I should say, is install a new chain. So cheapy chain you can get on Amazon. I think I paid $9 or $10. It was on sale at the time. So I'm going to open it up over here on the bench, and I'll just show you again. This is what it looks like out of the box. This particular chain comes with a quick link. And so let me pull it up here. You'll see both ends here are the inner links, so these will not join together. And instead what they give you is a pair of master links or quick links. Pull it over here, and they look like this. So they go in on either side in opposite directions here. Trying to do this while filming is not easy. You can see like this. These go in, and then they lock together. And there's a pair of pliers that you can buy that helps you spread them when you take it off, and then pull them together when you put it together. So what we're going to do is measure and get the chain length correct. And I just lost my marker. Here's my marker. Okay, so the method I use, and there's a lot of different methods out there. I think the easiest, if you're first getting started with flipping bikes or working on bikes in general, is if you have your chain that you're taking off, line it up link for link on the ground. And I say make sure it's link for link because you could start off at the beginning with them being perfect right next to each other. And as you get down the chain, you'll notice they start to be off by ever so slightly. And that's because your old chain had stretched. So just make sure they line up exactly, and then you can cut them that way to get the new length. The assumption there, it's a big assumption, is that the original chain was correctly sized. So it's up to you. Take that chance. If you didn't have any issues shifting previously and you're just replacing it, shouldn't be an issue at all. Just make sure that you get the right chain. So what I'm doing here, and I know you can't see it, is I'm setting the chain onto the large chain ring, so the big one at the front, and I have it wrapped around the back. I think you should be able to see that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up, and you're not going to be able to see it here, but I'll try and explain it. I want to find where the chain meets up with an outer link on this top here and a inner link on the bottom. Then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count 2 links out, and that's what I'm going to cut. So this is the +2 link method. I don't know if there's actually a better name for it. It's the method I use. I've seen others where they get it lined up using, there's a little hanger tool where you can connect the chain together, and then they just check to see how the derailleur is performing, if it's buckled in on itself, if it has the right curve. To each their own. This method works for me. Occasionally, I might be off by a link depending on the the compatibility of everything. All right, there we go. Could not get my chain breaker apart. So I'm going to take this, the chain breaker, great tool to have, necessary tool to have, really. You're going to be doing this a lot. I'm just going to break the chain. I'm going to push it all the way through, back it back out. Apologies, I'm a little under the weather. Daughter has strep throat now. I'm getting sick. God knows what's going to happen. So, anyways, now I got to find the quick links. All right, took a second. Quick links were in my pocket. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to thread it through and make sure you follow the guides on the derailleur here. If you don't have it right, you will know very quickly. And what I mean by that is if, for whatever reason, let's just say you took this around the back, you'll know. You'll hear it. Thankfully, I've never done that before, or at least that I'll admit to. All right, so I'm going to pull it through. I'm also going to pull it through now on the front derailleur here because it needs to go through there. I'm going to use my little hanger tool. This comes with the chain breaker. We'll go a few links back and just roughly pull them together here. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our quick links, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to put them in. They go in opposing directions. And I drop my hanger here, so now I got to make sure that I don't screw this up. There we go. Quick links on. It's already snapped into place. And that's that. All right, so now that we got the chain installed, what we're going to do is recable. And I think I mentioned this in the first video, maybe one of the other videos. I can't even remember at this point where we're at. These are my least favorite types of shifters. These are twist shifters or grip shifters. And they can be a bit of a pain to recable. So what I'm doing right now is I'm moving the brakes over so that I can move the shifter over so that I can try and get under this grip here with a nozzle. I have a WD-40 can with a nozzle. Another thing that I don't think I have anymore, I had little syringes that I would use to pump in some, oh my God, what is it? Like isopropyl alcohol, other things like that. So, gonna just use the WD-40 today, try and get this nozzle in there just to start loosening it. It might take a little bit to get it going. I find that these typically get stuck, and they get stuck pretty hard. Sometimes to the extent where you have to just put on new grips. So I'm gonna get this worked loose, and then I'll come back. All right, so I was able to finally get this off. Took a little bit of convincing with the WD-40, and then getting a very small screwdriver in here just to go around and loosen it up. But now we're ready to go take this to the bench and put a new cable in. All right, so when it comes to cables, you can order multi-packs off of Amazon. I'm sure there's other suppliers out there, your local bike shop, obviously. The ones I get from Amazon, I get in a 10-pack where it's 5 front, so your front derailleur, and then 5 rear for your rear derailleur. Pay attention to the length when you do it. There's been a few times where I have taken the rear derailleur shifter, which is this one, so the rear shifter, and I put a front cable on it, only to find out right at the end, right when I'm trying to reattach it, that I'm off by, a considerable amount. So if you put a rear cable on the front derailleur, it's not a big deal. You just have to trim a bit extra than you would have normally. But the other way around, it will not work. So I'm going to keep this here. I know this is a back cable because I label mine when I get them front. Let's just show you here, front, and then a backpack. And then also you just learn from experience to what kind of length you're looking for. So the trick for these, at least that I found, is it's easier to take it off the bike, which is what we've already done, as opposed to trying to do what I'm about to show you on the bike. It can be done. I just find that this way is a bit easier. So you're going to want to twist it, and at the same time, you're going to want to try and gingerly pull these two apart. You don't want to pull too hard because it go flying, and there's a little spring in here. I'll probably be able to show you. You do not want to lose. So you're going to just rotate it, and there's going to be a point where they're going to come apart. Again, just trying to be nice and gentle here doing this. And sometimes this cover wants to come off, so you might as well just take it while you're there. Oh, there we go. See, that was too hard. Smashed my hand, of course. But it came apart. So this is the inside of this portion. And there's this little spring. I can show you here. This little spring. It sits in here. Trying to get it in. Just like that. So the design of the spring, as this portion has these little channels in here, goes past, all that's your ratcheting. So that's the spring going in and out of these channels to get you that indexing on this shifter. So what I'm going to do, and of course the spring came out again, is I'm going to just replace the cable, put it back together, and then we'll put it back on the bike. And I'll do the same thing to the front derailleur side. And then we will add the housing. And I'll show you how I add the housing and do all that. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the end of the cable that doesn't have the head on it. If you're not familiar with the cables, these are the two ends. This end here has a thick base, and that's what's going to sit inside the shifter here. So I'm going to run the cable. There's a guide right in here. Pull that through, and then use your finger, or my finger in this case. And it went in. I realize I keep missing the mark. I got to get closer. Let me turn this a little bit. And then from there, freaking spring, man. I feel like there should be a little bit of adhesive or something to lock this spring in, but there's probably a design reason why that doesn't happen. I'm going to start putting these two back together, just very loosely. If I wasn't filming, I could have probably already done this. But I'm trying to be mindful of where my hands are and then not obstructing the view for you. So I'm just going to pull this cable up. I'm going to shove it through the guide, which is where it needs to go. Pull it through, and then I'm going to start pushing it down. Keep it taut. Make sure this is seated in there. It looks like it's moved. There we go. Then drop it in again. Pull it tight. And then there we go. So you hear it clicking. That cable is going to be moving. Some models, you got to make sure that it is wound around a time, depending on how it comes out. So pay attention as you take it apart. Some of them, depending on how the cable's routed, might have to go around, like I said, and then back down, or it goes around another way and then back down. In this particular case, it just goes straight into there because of how it's anchored. So that's how you do the twist shifter recabling, at least for the rear derailleur. I'm going to do the front derailleur, and then once we're all set up, we'll start doing the cabling, or the housing. I'm going to quickly show, this is the front, and just like I had mentioned in the last video, it curls around. So the cable will go in here, it's going to go around before coming out. So this is an example of what I was talking about. Okay, so both the front and the rear shifters have their cables. Now we're going to add the cable housing. I get my cable housing in these big reels. It's the SRAM brand. I think they're like $80 to $90 for the entire thing, and it's quite a lot. It lasts. It definitely lasts a while. So it's worth it to buy it if it's something that you're going to be getting into. You could also buy the packs off of Amazon. You could actually buy a pack where it has all four cables, the two shifters and the two brakes, already encased in the housing. Problem with that is I don't think they give you the end caps or the, what are they called, the ferrules. I don't think they give those to you. They might be on the cable, but I don't think they give you enough. So anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I go about doing this. One of the things that I use, I don't know if others use it. This is airline hosing from the aquarium, and it's just some extra that I had, and it fits pretty well into all the slots. I mean, it's could be a little tighter, but it's not a bad way of getting a good estimate for however much you need. So like in this case, let's say I'm going to here, which is where I may need to go. I just pinch it, and then now I know I need to go cut this much housing, and then that's going to fit there. So I think that's what we need for the rear. A lot of these bikes have them in different patterns, or in different spots, I should say. So I'm going to see this one goes down here, and there's a cable guide. And from that cable guide, it runs up over here. So here, there's a guide here where just the cable will go in, and then we'll attach it. So we need a piece of housing here, and then we only need one here, and then the rest of the cable will just be loose. And yeah, so let me just come back here, put this up. So I'm going to push it in again. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to get a rough idea of where it's going to sit. Now, an important thing to do is also move your headset and see, do I have enough cable or housing in this case? If it's too short, like, so if I had it, let's just say like this, and I'm hoping you could see this. If it's barely enough, if I need to extend in either direction, it's going to be limiting. And not only is the housing going to be pulling on it, what's going to happen is you're going to add tension and you'll start shifting. So you don't want that, particularly with brakes. But I mean, even in this case, you don't necessarily want to be shifting while you're turning. So I'm gonna pull it out. I'm gonna get a fair amount, make sure I have a good bend. And again, I've pinched it, and now I'm gonna go take this over and cut it at the boxes. So I'm gonna pull it over, and I'm gonna make sure this is derailleur cable, which it is. They're different. If you didn't know, they are different. So don't interchange them. I'm gonna lay it out. I'm gonna pull out my Park Tool cutters here, and I'm gonna snip it. And then I also like to just put it in and reform the cut end and check the other end here, and all that's good. When you cut the brake cables, and I'll show that probably in the next video, you sometimes have to trim it because of the liner on the inside, how it's like a spiral, and that can cause friction with your cables if you don't cut it correctly. I also put like a very small screwdriver through there to clean it out, but never really have any issues here with the shifting. So I put cable ends on and push them on hard. I'm going to push this through. And it feels nice and smooth. If you're feeling resistance, something's wrong. So you got to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm going to get it seated properly. I'm going to seat it through here. I'm going to check my cable length. Put it out there in front of the light. I think this looks good. While adding a little bit of tension, I'm going to go through our gears. Feels good to me. It's pulling on the cable. So that looks good to me. Now I'm going to thread it through our guide here. And then leave it like that. It depends on if you want to. And for a long time I didn't do this. Let me pull a couple out here. Some of the packs come with these little, try to get it to the camera. They're very tiny. It's some sort of like a plastic gel. I don't know what you'd call it. The cable goes through this, and you don't want a rattling. Depending on, I mean, you should have enough tension to where that's not an issue. But what you could do, and just pull this back through here, is you could put a couple on. Trying to do this, my fat old fingers. You put a couple on, and it basically acts as a spacer between the wire and the frame. Come on. There we go. Pull this back through. Get them set up. And then you're not going to hear it. Very light. Again, checking. Neither of them are in the way. So if you ever received them and wondered what those were, because that was me a while ago, that's what they're for. So, all right, next one. I gotta make sure I know where my cable cutters went. I keep moving stuff around, driving myself crazy. They're probably in a pocket somewhere. Oh, they're right here. Dummy. Okay, so the next one, same process as before. I'm gonna put it in here, and then I don't want it to be super short, so I know it's hard to see. Maybe I should just bring you over. Let's do that. I'm gonna put it in here, and I don't want it to be like this, but I also don't want it to look ridiculous. Essentially, what you want to aim for is in a normal position, which probably going to be somewhere in about this vicinity. You want to have a loop where that loop will come in at the parallel, I should say, trying to make the tubing and the barrel adjuster here parallel as possible. You want to aim for something like that. You want a nice loop that comes into it. So I'm going to pinch it here, pull it down, get it cut, put on our end caps. If I don't drop them here. Ugh. And then we'll check the fit. So just like the teardown, this is probably one of my favorite parts is the recabling. I was intimidated by it originally, just like many of these aspects, because it's tough to to do something like during the pandemic where you really don't have somebody there to teach you and teach you in the moment. Kind of just have to learn from your mistakes as you go. Like I'm learning right now, I should have had this stuff ready before filming, but whatever. So I'm gonna take off the pinch bolt here, and before I attach anything, I'm going to turn the barrel adjuster all the way in. Turning. All right, so it's all the way in. I'm gonna back it out a few rotations. And this model of shifter also has one up front, so it's down here. And turn it all the way in. I'm going to turn it out a few. The reason is the major adjustments that we do for the shifting, I should say the only major adjustment, is clamping and getting the shift cable in. We can adjust the limits, but then when it comes to like fine tuning the cage movement, that's where you'll use your barrel adjusters. So you don't want either of them turned all the way in, because if you have to turn them out to add tension, you'll be fine. But if you need to turn them in to reduce some of the tension, you won't have anywhere to do it. So some systems have one adjuster, which is typically at the back if they only have one. Some, like this one, have two, where it's in both places. You can buy what's called an inline barrel adjuster, which would go on the housing between some of the mounting points. I've never actually used one, but I do know if you wanted one and your shifter didn't have it, you could actually add it. So that's it's pretty cool. Maybe one day I'll work on that, or work on one with that. So I'm going to pull the cable into where it needs to go, and this one has a channel. I'm going to tighten it down. And before I do anything, I'm going to come over and I'm going to put a lot of strain on the cable. Not so much stretching the cable as we are just seating it into its housing. So you might be able to see it here. I know it's a little tough. I'm going to pull, and I just took the tension out of the cable. So all that settling that caused some of the slack is now out of the cable. And now we're attached. So didn't really want to, but I guess since we're here, I could do a quick tuning. So I'm going to go up one gear, another gear. It's not bad. Going to go down, 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 and down. So really not that bad. Obviously, we're hitting up at the front here because the derailleur needs to be adjusted, but not bad at all. Something super important, and I'm mad at myself for not telling you this. When I attached the cable, I made sure that I was in the lowest gear up on the gear shifter. And what I mean by that is right when I attached it, we were here, right? So there's no more. If I had attached it, but the position was, let's say, up here, and it's skipping, so this is another good opportunity to show you how to adjust it. Had I been like in the third or fourth gear and we attached it, our gearing would be all off. So you have to make sure before you attach it and you're in the low or the highest gear, that you're in the highest gear on the actual gear shifter, which makes sense. So move this stuff out of the way. See if I could get you a view down here. It's gonna be really tough to see. So let's see if I zoom in. I don't know if this is gonna do it justice. Try and get it to where you can see it. So it's wanting to go up. You see that you could actually physically see it a little bit too. The chain is trying to jump up. And so right now we're showing in third gear, 1, 2, 3, but the chain is in the fourth. So that means we need to add tension. So to add tension, you loosen the barrel adjuster. And by loosening the barrel adjuster, and there you go, now I made the jump, you're adding tension. So the way to think about it is when you loosen this, you're increasing the amount of distance that the cable has to go to travel, which is adding tension. I'm going to go up, and it's still hesitating a little bit. A lot of this to me is expected right at the beginning when you first attach a new cable, just because it's going to be stretching for a while. And then go down, go down, go down. So that's looking pretty good. Probably going to reset some of that, and I mean that in terms of like the barrel adjusters. So I'll let it all settle in, disconnect the cable, reset the barrel adjusters, and do it again. Probably after a day or two, let it all settle. So now we're going to work on the front derailleur. What we can do before we even put the cable on, let me see if I can show you this. Apologies for the weird videography here. But the chain should be hitting or nearly hitting the inside, so this side of the cage when we're in the lowest gear. So let me put it in the lowest gear. All right. So we're in the lowest gear in the back. There's no cable yet. Obviously, we haven't done it. And you can see we're not on the inside. So that's a point of alignment. When you have it in the lowest gear, you don't have any tension on the cable, or in this case, there's no cable. The cage and the chain should almost meet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm pushing the cage out using the limit screw. All right, so right about probably there seems good. Give it a quick spin. Oh, I gotta take this cable off before I cause issues. Oh, didn't even realize we jumped ship. There we go. That's what happens when you're filming. You forget some of the important stuff you need to do. Like, I don't know, check that you're not falling off. Anyways, so now it's still hard to see, but we are right about where we need to be with this setup. So that's looking good. Now what I'll do is I will attach the cable here. We'll go through the shifting, and then that'll probably be it for this video. All right, so I added the cable to the front derailleur. I've already tested it. Seems to be working pretty well, I should say. So just gonna spin it up here, go through a couple gear changes, middle of the cassette now, or freewheel, I should say. I'm gonna bring it up right where it needs to be. I'm gonna go up to our high, looking good. Down, down, up, up, drop down, go to the lowest, go all the way up, and we're doing good. So what I wanted to show, there's a lot of things I want to show. The rear derailleur and the rear shifter, well, I should just say the rear shifter. Obviously the derailleur does what you want it to do. This is indexed, and you can see the numbers here. So what the index means is that there is a set index or distance that when this moves, this changes. This side, the front, is not indexed. And you can see there's a bunch of just little dots, and there's an H, and somewhere down there's a L for low. And what this does, it gives you a bunch of different movements all throughout the range of motion here. I'm trying to do this with one hand, not really working. So I personally prefer this setup for those that do not really know how to maintain their bikes that well, or just want something that's a little easier to shift in general, because you're not really thinking about like, where do I need to go? I think it's just a nicer setup to be able to just keep clicking it down. You hear a noise, and like you can say, oh, it's hitting there. I'm going to pull it back 1 or 2 clicks. So I would consider this more of like a continuous type of a shifter. Obviously, not every possible combination is there, but I really like that setup. I don't have any other bikes really that are comparable to that. Let me just see. This is my Giant, and the front shifter here is indexed because I'm running a 2x, just a compact 5034, and so I only have 2 options. It either goes up or down, and there's a little trim feature, whereas this one gives you a little bit of everything. So that's the derailleurs. Last video will probably be just the brake setup, and then we will post her and hopefully get her sold.